Okay guys, we're back at it, testing these rivets again, and I've taken the practice piece and cleaned it up, just threw it in the blast cabinet real quick, and I've made 4 welds here. So I started by cleaning the metal where I was going to put a weld at with a roll lock, got it bright and shiny. This first one here I actually drilled a pilot hole. I just put my clip over the edge there and I made a reference mark and I drilled it with a 1/16 bit. And then on the back side I opened it up with a 3/16 bit, and you can still see part of the rivet down there that's where the hole was. It's not welded. You can actually still see just a tad of daylight in there. What I was going to do is just hit the back side of that with a welder. Now this was the one that I made a reference mark and come in right beside of the reference mark and just welded it like normal. And this one right here, I got a little bit off on my placement. The molding clip won't fit this, so if this was the real deal we'd be in trouble. But you can see it won't go over the edge. It's just I got a little too far down, but it'll work for testing purposes. And on this one I actually drilled the hole after welding. I've just barely drilled a 3/16 hole on the back side and was going to weld that up. There's one down here that I just did normally, and on all of these I counted 1001. You can see the halves on it, the heat affected zone. And when I took this stud welder off, every one of these, they were all cherry red, every one of these studs. So now they got pretty hot, and we're going to weld the back side of these 2. I'll get these back holes here welded up, and I'll bring you back. Okay, YouTube, here it is. Played around with the welder a little bit, just getting the settings right. So I got the welder dialed in on this piece of scrap here. And you can see here, I went in here and I welded these 2 holes up here. And I gotta tell you, with this little bit of a gap in between this fold, you have to be pretty careful because it will want to blow the top metal off. And of course some of this is where I was actually cutting the skin off. I cut on the old skin. You always cut on your waist to basically trying to save the frame. But on this one screw here that I have in place, I went ahead and ground it down, and I welded the back of that screw in, melted it in. So I thought while we was there we'd try that. So yesterday with my test with these pliers, it may not have been real accurate. I was talking to Barb Cito today, and we was talking about shear force and how sometimes when I'm grabbing this rivet, you kind of basically doing a twist action, which is actually how you break the studs loose when you're done with them. And he was talking about basically using 2 screwdrivers and pulling up on the panel. And you can see it moving the metal there. I mean, these things are on there really good. And this is one that was just done like it's supposed to be. You know, I counted 1001, made sure everything was clean. I even blasted the back side of the rivets. You know, it may have been a little bit exaggerated using this. It's probably nowhere near ever going to see that type of force. But the only reason I was using this is I had went out to the originals and I had pulled the originals off, and when I pulled the originals off like that, it actually, like I said, I had a little circle left in the base metal. And I'll show you that as well. I'll try to go get one of those tomorrow. It's dark outside now. It's actually pretty late, and I'll show you how those pull off. But we were talking about just using a screwdriver and just pulling straight up. And I'm putting quite a bit of force on there. So them things are on there. Now if I just go like so, you can see that was on there really good. It didn't leave a hole, but it was definitely welded, and that's probably how they're designed to do, to be honest with you, after thinking about it. Let's try some of these others. This is the one that I pre-drilled the hole all the way through and then went on the back side and opened it up to a 3/16, and I come in and welded it. Actually, it's a little off too, because when I put the molding clip on it and I push it down, it doesn't lay directly over the door like it should. I got it a little off. The placement on these things is critical. Like I said, that was really exaggerated. You can see how much strength I had to put on that one. It does look like it was welded all the way up. Alright, this one is just one that was done regularly. Again, it's on there. It ain't coming off. But if you see, it penetrated in the metal. It's still, you know, on top of it. It still didn't leave a hole like the originals. And then this is the one that I didn't drill a pilot hole. I just went ahead and welded it. I come in afterwards and drilled a 3/16 hole in the back. Kind of just marked it on the very back side of where it was at. And then I actually think this is actually going to be the strongest. It ain't coming off. It actually come off a little bit easier than this one, but it did come off. But like I said, this is probably really over exaggerated what I'm doing here. This is that screw that I welded the backside of. This ought to be fun. You can still see part of the screw down in there where it was welded. I basically pulled it in half there. Now, I don't know if that's because it was where it was welded. The weld was stronger, and that's why that part of the screw let go. You can still see the rest of the screw in there. And I mean, that was some serious force I put on it. A lot more than any of the others that I'd done. Okay guys, outside here it's probably going to be pretty windy, but this is one of the original rivets, and I'm going to try to do this with one hand. This is how I was judging my test. Basically, when I pull this off, you can see there it leaves a hole, and that's what I was trying to gauge this on, and it may have been just too much. I think the rivets I have are actually holding really good compared to what I'm trying to, the way that I'm trying to break them off here. Again, it leaves a hole. And so that's what I was using as the base of my test. And again, it may be a little bit too much for those welded rivets with the stud gun. Maybe you're not going to get one of these holes like this with it. But anyway, I'm just going to show you that on camera. I tell you, the screws are a little bit easier for this application because, like I was mentioning to you before, that your accuracy on the placement has to be just about right. I pulled that so hard, I don't know if the camera's picking it up. But I moved the metal. I pulled it so hard that I dented the metal in the back. And there's never gonna be that much force on this. It just ain't gonna happen. Even with these, you know, you guys seen me pulling up on those screwdrivers. I believe that would be, you know, I believe doing it that way would be fine. And even this one that was done regularly, I think maybe just cleaning the metal real good, staying on it longer, and just making sure I count 1001, it would work. But so we'll do a panel bond test on one. Okay, YouTube, I got this panel bond in. This is 3M 8115 that I've got, and I made a little mess just to do a small test with this stuff. But I took my screws here and I have basically filled the hole up with the panel bond. I also coated the screw with the panel bond, and I have basically installed the screw. You can see I've got a really good seal there between the panel and the screw. I have also test fitted the clip on these, and then I took a little bit of reducer and just cleaned them up around the edges. So we're right at 72 in the garage tonight. I'm gonna let this sit overnight. Actually, it's probably gonna sit a couple days because it's gonna be a few days before I can get back out here. Here's the look at what I did on the back side. Like I said, I'm gonna let that sit for a few days and see how it does. And then I'm gonna come out here and take a pair of pliers and see if I can pull it out. Be interesting to see. Okay, YouTube, so I lost the footage of me actually breaking these screws off after the panel bond. But as you can see, the screws broke, and they broke about the same force that it took to break off the welded studs. And the reason for that is because the screws are fairly soft, softer than the bond and the metal. So I just use the same pliers and same kind of twisting action, and like I said, it seemed to be about the same type of force as far as I could tell. Still see the screw is still bonded to the panel. You know, one method is probably just as good as the other. The screws are a little bit easier to install. They do pose more of a chance for rust, but you can combat that with the panel bond and making sure you get a good seal, and also with the good epoxy primer. And the welded studs, they're a little harder to get in the exact location. Mike over at You Can Do It Too, he mentioned, you know, making a jig. That way the stud gun is at the exact location each time, and that would work as well. So not really sure which way I'll go yet. I'm still thinking about it, but I am excited to get started back on the doors. So we're going to go ahead and move forward, and when I have some more progress, I'll be back online. Thank you, guys.